Let's begin today by talking about some of the greatest marketing blunders. How many of you have seen one of the Tom Cruise Mission Impossible movies, 1, 2, or 3? Well, when Paramount Pictures launched their campaign to promote Mission Impossible 3, they put these small red musical devices inside 4,500 LA Times newspaper boxes. When people opened the device, it played the Mission Impossible theme song, which might have been fun, except that when people saw the little boxes, they thought they were bombs. In one instance, the Santa Clarita Bomb Squad was called in, and they blew up the newspaper box to neutralize the so-called bomb. Or how about Kentucky Fried Chicken? When the fast food giant opened their first store in China in 1987, they accidentally translated KFC's famous slogan, "Finger looking good," as "We'll eat your fingers off." One more, and I love this one. An American t-shirt manufacturer trying to cash in on the Pope's visit to a Latin American country printed t-shirts that were supposed to say, "I saw the Pope," but were incorrectly translated in Spanish to read, "I saw the potato." Now, what we've been talking about over the last 8 weekends in our series, Beautiful, might be what marketers called value-added advertising. Jesus has been pronouncing a series of blessings that come from being one of his followers. You be this, and you will be blessed. But then he finishes his most famous series of sayings with what I think is really an interesting or odd choice of words. Check out how he closes the sale. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Now, when it comes to marketing, how does that strike you? Blessed are those who are persecuted? That sounds like another blunder when it comes to marketing a product. Not exactly something that makes most of us say, "That sounds great, where do I sign up?" So why did he say that? Why cap off his famous "blessed are" statements like that? When Jesus talks about the possibility of persecution, he's making sure everybody listening knows that being a true follower of his was going to make them truly different. Say that word after me: different. Think about it. Persecution doesn't come from being like everybody else, does it? Jesus is saying straight up, what I have to offer, this beautiful life I've been talking about, don't associate beautiful with comfortable. If you want to be comfortable, I'm the wrong person to line up behind. It's going to make you different, and different isn't usually comfortable. It's a different that is a better way to live, but it's not comfortable. In fact, look at the 2 word pictures Jesus uses immediately after the Beatitudes to describe his followers. He says, "You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. And you are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." Now for us, salt and light might not seem like that big of a deal, and that's because salt and light are pretty common to us. You ask for salt at a McDonald's, and what do they give you? Big handful of salt. You want more? Another handful of salt. Much as you want. And light isn't hard to come by either. We have it any time we want. We just flip the switch. But salt and light weren't like that in Jesus' day. Salt was valuable and hard to come by back then. Have you ever heard someone say he's not worth his salt? When ancient Rome, salt was used as a form of currency. Salt was also one of only 2 ways to preserve food back then, especially meat. You could either smoke it or pack it in salt and preserve it. So for Jesus to say that followers of his are like salt was a really big deal. Salt was a precious commodity. Same thing could be true about light. I could call for more house lights right now. We could easily flood the room with more light. But think about how you feel when the power goes out in the evening and you find yourself in the dark. In Jesus' day, when the sun went down, darkness was the rule and light was the exception. That was then, but salt and light still make a big difference now. Salt still makes a big difference. You give someone popcorn with absolutely no salt on it, and they'll most likely say, "Hey, this needs some salt." They notice that the salt is missing right away. And if we're in a room 10 times this size and it's totally dark in here, one single little Christmas tree light would be easy to spot once it was lit, right? So salt and light still make a noticeable difference. So here's what Jesus is saying. All these qualities I've been telling you about to describe my followers, the poor in spirit, those who mourn their sin, the meek, which he said was about power under control, those who hunger for a right relationship with God, the merciful, the pure in heart, the peacemakers, people like that will sometimes experience persecution because people like that are not the norm. And nobody gets persecuted for being like everybody else. There's a noticeable difference. Does that make sense? But let's be clear, it's not supposed to be like an obnoxious difference, because there are the obnoxious in-your-face Christians. Like one guy at a movie theater who, when asked, "Is this seat saved?" responded by saying, "No, but the real question is, are you saved?" That's not noticeably different. That's obnoxious. That's in-your-face, holier-than-thou Christianity. And that's not what Jesus was talking about. And he also wasn't talking about cosmetic Christians. Cosmetic Christians may go to church or have a fish on their car or something, but beyond that, they're just like everyone else. Those aren't the kind of differences Jesus was talking about. When Jesus says, "My followers are salt and light," he means we are different, but different in a beneficial way for others. He's saying to us, live the kind of lives that make others' lives better, that helps keep good things from going bad and spices things up. Make people thirst for the truth about me and show people that following me enhances their lives. And Jesus is saying, live the kind of life that will illuminate and help people find their way. A life that will shine my compassion into dark places of despair, that will bring truth to light. Live lives that will attract people to me because I am ultimately the light of life. And Jesus, he refused to be a spin doctor. He told people straight up that even though the differences are beneficial differences, not everyone is going to see it that way. They're not going to be happy to have salt and light around. Again, let's look at salt and light. We all know what it's like to be sound asleep in the middle of the night and have somebody turn on the lights. What do? We yell out, turn out that light. A lot of times people are used to the dark. They don't want certain things out in the light, and so they tend to prefer the dark and hate the light. At times, salt makes people uncomfortable too. Salt used to be used to clean out a wound. And salt does help bring healing, but it also really stings. The water in the Dead Sea is 34% salt, 10 times saltier than the ocean. And let me just tell you, if you have even a small cut anywhere on your body, you'll feel it. Salt can sting. No bait and switch here. Jesus is telling us there will be times when people will react negatively to those who are salt and light, because salt and light can have that kind of effect on people. Sometimes it happens because a Christ follower won't participate in certain things, and no matter how low-key you try to be about it, trouble can come your way. Sometimes it happens because you speak up against something that is wrong or refuse to do something you're asked to do that isn't right. And no matter how respectful and not judgmental you try to be about it, sometimes it's going to cost you. But don't forget this. Jesus didn't say, you just have to endure it, put up with it. No, he said, it's not fun, it's not pleasant, but you'll be blessed when it happens to you. He says you're in good company. He says, rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. So let's be painstakingly clear. Jesus isn't saying something's wrong with my life if I'm not being persecuted or mistreated for my faith. But I think his words about persecution should cause us to ask ourselves a big question. And here it is. Is there really anything different about me? These words about persecution and mistreatment and salt and light should cause us to ask, if no one is noticing that I'm not different, why not? What if nobody sees anything about me that is different from anyone else? Now, more than ever, friends, we've got to pay attention to this. True Christ followers are salt and light. They are different from those who aren't followers of Jesus. Now, maybe I'm never mistreated for my faith because our society is much more tolerant of different faiths, unlike Jesus' day. But maybe it's not that our society is different from his. Maybe it's that we aren't that different from our society. So let me be clear about what I believe Jesus is challenging us with today. He is saying to call yourself a Christ follower because that means you will be a different from others in a beneficial, difference-making way. And he's asking each of us to look at our lives and make one of two decisions today. The first decision is for anyone who has never really fully committed their life to Jesus to do so and to say, I understand the commitment that Jesus is asking for, and for the first time, I am committing to following him and to be salt and light. Or if you're already a Christ follower, the second decision is to say, I haven't really been the salt and light he intended me to be. And starting today, I am recommitting myself to that. Now think about that, because in a moment, every one of us will have an opportunity to respond to Jesus by making a commitment or a recommitment. And with that in mind, let me give you 3 quick words that are true of salt and light people. People who are different in a difference-making way in their families, their neighborhoods, and their workplaces. The first word is give. The most generous statistics say the average American gives away about 3.1% of their income to charitable causes. And nearly half of all Americans log in a big fat 0 when it comes to donating time through community service. So if I want to be salt and light, there's got to be something different about how I give my money and my time. Does anybody ever ask, why do you spend so much time serving in your neighborhood? Or why do you put so much of your creative energy into that church? Or have you ever had your financial planner or accountant say, well, why are you giving away so much of your money? You see, love for others expressed through generosity of time and money is intended to be a mark of Christ followers. Is our generosity quantitatively and qualitatively different from non-Christ followers? Is there anything truly different about the way you and I give? The first word true of salt and light people is give, and the second word is stand. And by stand, I mean stand for what's right and stand against what's wrong. And now, I'm not talking about being holier than thou. We've already talked about obnoxious differences. I'm talking about taking a stand because you know something is right or you know something is wrong. Historically, Christianity has made its biggest difference and drawn the most fire because Christians took a stand and didn't participate in things that other people did or did not do. You know, I've been increasingly impressed with the new Pope, Pope Francis, and his willingness to take a stand in words and in action on issues of injustice, evangelism, and poverty. He's the Pope who refused to live in the papal apartment. He refused to have some of the elaborate trappings that have long gone with that position. He challenges the status quo with words like these. These days, there is a lot of poverty in the world. And that's a scandal when we have so many riches and resources to give to everyone. We all have to think about how we can become a little poorer. It seems wherever he goes, he gravitates toward the least and the lost. He says it, lives it, he takes a stand. So where do you and I draw the line? Is there anything different about our character, our morals, how we live? What do we stand for? Could anything in our lives be viewed as radical in today's society? Our second word is stand. And finally, our third word, love. This is about how we love each other. You see, our love for one another is supposed to stick out as something unusual, something different in this world, something that makes people take notice. Here's what Jesus says, "By this everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another." The love we have for one another is supposed to stick out in a salt and light kind of way. It's a love of a different kind. We talk about small groups here, sometimes so often that if you've been here very long, you might be tired of hearing about it. But the truth is, we often focus on the benefit to us having a small group, having the support, having the friendships with others on a similar spiritual journey, experiencing genuine community. But Jesus reminds us that our relationships with other Christ followers are not just about us getting what we need to keep us stoked and going. It's a major factor in drawing people's attention to him. I want to read to you a letter from one of our small group attenders here at Community. They sent it to their leader, and I got permission to share it. I just want to let you know how grateful and thankful I am for my small group. It has been a wonderful learning experience for me, and I'm glad that I took the risk to get involved. Not only have I learned about freedom and the gift of God's grace, but I've established meaningful, genuine relationships with other people in my small group. Being a part of a small group has helped me to open up to people about my life and who I am. The awesome thing is that these people accept me for who I am and where I'm at, and that's a very big deal to me. I have to say that my small group goes above and beyond what I ever expected. Recently, I had shared with my small group about how I had been struggling financially to make ends meet. I asked them to pray for me, and they did. Not long after that, I got a raise at my job, and my small group leaders handed me a check for $200. I was blown away. Everyone in my group got together to give me money to help out toward paying some of my bills. I wasn't expecting this at all. This never happened to me before. And so I want to say I'm very grateful to be a part of community and grateful to God for the genuine love, care, and concern that the people here at this church have shown. Thank you so much. You know, it's a beautiful thing to watch a group of Christ followers live out loving one another in such a tangible way. There's supposed to be something different about the way we relate to one another. In a world where most people are taught to look out for me and mine, do you realize how loving one another can stick out as something truly different and radical? Our love is supposed to shine like a light in the darkness, inviting others in, illuminating Jesus. So we give. The generosity of Christians is intended to be quantitatively and qualitatively different from non-Christ followers. Is there anything different about how you and I give? And we stand. But for what will we take a stand? Is there anything different about our character, our morals? Could anything in our lives be viewed as radical in today's society? And love. Are there people in this community who would point to you or I and say, that person has my back. They're looking out for me. That person knows how to love. Who would say that about us? So now it's time to choose, and our choices are really two. If you're not a Christ follower yet, you can become one. You can make that choice today, right now, at your seat. You can make that choice privately between you and God, and then you will make that choice publicly by being baptized. This can be a moment when you say to Jesus privately, I want to follow you, Jesus, throughout this life and on into the next. I will give as you ask me to give. I will take a stand when you ask me to take a stand, and I will love those you've given me to love. Starting today, I'm a follower of Jesus. For others, maybe you're like me and you made a decision some time ago, privately and publicly, by being baptized. But today, you have to admit that over time your salt has lost some flavor and your light has been a little less than bright. Today, you and I can recommit to being salt and light. No more Christian in name and belief only stuff, but really give it all you got, no holds barred, salt and light, Christ following. After all, when Jesus talked about salt and light, he said as a Christ follower, you are salt and you are light. There was no real question. That's what it means to follow him. So the blessed life is the life that is given fully to Jesus. It's a different life, but it's a beautiful one. It's a life available to anyone who wants it. So take hold of it today.